Hi, I'm Tony Armendariz, this year's judge at the Watercolor exhibit here at the Norris Gallery at the Cultural Center. It was a great honor, and I was very excited to be asked to judge this year's show, having been in the show for a number of years. It was really exciting to come and not only see some artists that I know and that I'm familiar with, but a lot of the new artists that are out there and getting their work out there for either the first time or some of the artists who, just haven't shown much over the years and are still new to it in that respect. So I encourage that. As a judge, that's one of the things that I encourage my students, I should say, to get their work out there and into a show like this, especially at the local level. It's really important because you get to see your work alongside your peers, really get a feel for what it's like to see your work in public and have the public look at your work. The show itself, the awards, that's like gravy, but the show is very important on all levels because we're always, wanting to show our work alongside our peers and to, I guess be judged. But it's really important in our career because it helps us push our work forward when we get that feedback. Contrary to what a lot of people think, we don't operate in a vacuum. We artists are not hermits. We need to be out there amongst the people, have them looking at our work. And a show like this, it's specific to watercolor, but it's really wonderful. And you develop wonderful friendships that are long-lasting afterwards. So congratulations to you for getting in the show, for putting your work out there, and for those of you who got awards, which are wonderful also.
Good afternoon, my name is Joan Breden-Dick, and the painting that I have in the show is Blue Hound. And I began painting as an undergraduate, and I had a very wonderful teacher who inspired me. I worked in a rather non-traditional way, even when I first started, and he encouraged me. His name was Win Jones, and started me on my journey. My work, how I approach it, is I consider it a rather non-traditional watercolor style, but I always say paint is paint. And just because it's watercolor paint, it does not have to look a specific way, because all art is significant, and no matter how you use the medium. I'm inspired by the female figure. A lot of my work has a female figure in conjunction with animals. Blue Hound is related to greyhounds. It's a greyhound with a creepy tail, which they do not have, but we had retired racers. And so I'm very fascinated with animals in conjunction with the female figure, and I'm trying to capture more what an animal feels like than what an animal specifically looks like. I use exaggeration in the figure for expressiveness, and I do the same thing with the animals. For example, in Blue Hound, that's called a play bow, when they have their front legs out like this and their tail up in the air. And then the fact that the greyhound has the fringes on the end of the tail, that's just a little unusual element that I do with a lot of my animals that I paint. For expressiveness, what I want the viewer to take from the paintings is whatever the viewer wants to take, because I realize I only have you for a short amount of time, a brief period that you're looking at what I'm doing, and if I can hold you there a little bit longer by having a really strong composition, very powerful colors, then communication occurs, and that's what I'm ultimately trying to do.
I am Patty Linden-Seaford, and this is an unexpected pleasure. Thank you, and thank you to the Norris people, because this is always a great show to do. I paint in watercolors. I've tried other mediums, but being very honest with you, I always go back to watercolor. It is my favorite. I like the spontaneity, I like the fluidity, I like the colors, I like the transparency. And I do work from my own photography and my own sketches. And I spend much time just kind of carousing the back roads of where I live and other places as well, but there's always beautiful farms and barns and farmhouses and waterways and forestry. We have so much right here that is so beautiful and kind of goes unappreciated. I just can't resist. When I go by a beautiful barn, I got to do something with it. I always wonder, you know, my dad had, I know you hear this all the time, but it's like if these walls could talk. You know, I always wonder, who are the people that lived here? What happened to them? And how did they come here? And what was their day like? And that type of thing, you know. So I have some emotion that's connected to what I do. And they don't all turn out. There was a stack of things that didn't turn out, but I always have fun doing it.
Hi, I'm Dan Danielson, and I have been fortunate to have won an award here at the Watercolor 2022 show at the Norris Cultural Center. And it's always a great show, and it's always fun to be here, and it's a privilege to have gotten this award. I'm really kind of a city guy. I enjoy the city, but a lot of my inspiration comes from the country. And so the piece that I entered today that won an award was inspired by up in northern Wisconsin. I went to a farm equipment show, and there were tractors there, and the pride that the people had in restoring these old tractors, it was really kind of emotional. That's what I try to paint. I try to paint the emotion, the mood, and these tractors and the people that were there really inspired me to capture the story that all of these people had. So I kind of put it together. That's why I like to capture not just things or objects, but the story behind the people and their love of, in this case, tractors.
Hi, my name is Fatima Figuerio. I have a painting here that's called Surviving the Elements. It's a transparent watercolor that I use only transparent watercolor paintings. What inspired me to this painting? It was the sky. I love the skies in Illinois. I think here the skies are so powerful and so menacing sometimes that gives me some ideas for my painting. So the painting is a little farm, and I made even the farm smaller than it was in my photo, but I like to make the sky huge and very menacing, because I think skies they speak by themselves when they have those beautiful clouds and storms, and they're coming, and that's what inspires me to do my paintings when they have something happen like that.
I'm Jennifer Soule, and I live in the countryside west of St. Charles. I'm a practicing attorney still, and I do civil rights law, and I then, on my rest of my time, do my painting. The particular painting in this show at the Norris Center is called Breakthrough, and it is inspired by the landscape on my property. And I often, while working and gardening and walking dogs, am out in that space. And so I was really inspired just to capture the feeling of the atmosphere, the special tree that's out there, and including the weeds and things in the field. So I wanted to really take the approach of just two colors with an accent just for the trees. So I just used, for a background, which is not really that visible, yellow ochre behind the sky, and I used ultramarine, and then I used indigo, and that's the whole color scheme really for the painting, which I think let it come out and just be very dramatic. So it has that dramatic feel to looking at nature, and that's what I paint landscapes and some of the farms around where I live. And I'm very drawn to watercolor because it has a mind of its own, and it does things on its own that you have to let it do. And it's sort of magical in a certain way when you kind of let it react to the paper and the different style of the brush strokes and everything. And it's just so, it's a combination. It's very organic and very natural the way that it comes out. So that's my painting, and I was surprised that it received the honorable mention, but I'm very pleased, and I take that seriously, and I think it's really cool. And I appreciate the show and thank the Norris Center for having this, and I look forward to, in the future, maybe trying to see if something else can get hung on the walls here.
Hello, my name is Robert Jay Krajecki. I'm basically a watercolor teacher. I've been painting for about 50 years. When I graduated from art school, I was hired to teach art at the American Academy of Art, where I was teaching for about 28 years. Still teaching in kind of semi-retirement. I paint in traditional watercolors. I also do oil painting, gouache, done some egg tempera. I like to try different things. I like to experiment with the art. When I was a student, I read a book called The Art and Science of Painting. So I really got into the science part of art and how paint handles, especially watercolor paint, the different types of paper, the different types of pigment, and how brushes work. And so I'm very technical in my approach to painting. As far as the painting that he gave me an award on, it's not unusual. In transparent watercolor, I would like to work background to foreground, large to small, and intense to gray. And the procedure is pretty much the same for every painting. This one was a little bit more unique for two reasons. One, because it's backlit. So when you have backlighting, showing shape and form is much more difficult because you don't have a light side of an object and a shadow side of an object. Everything is basically backlit, so you only see the shadow side of an object. The second thing is there's a lot of depth in the painting, and to show depth you want grayer colors and softer edges in the background. And gradually, as it comes into the foreground, it gets harder edged and a little bit more intense in color. So to do that, I reverted back to my science thing. So if you study transparent watercolors, what they put into transparent watercolors, the pigment itself in the tube, has pigment, it has water, has gum arabic, which is the glue that holds the pigment together and so it doesn't fall off your paper. And they also use glycerin. Glycerin is a substance that makes the colors spread evenly. It's a very thick, heavy solution, and that substance also dries a little bit slower than water, so it gives you more time to work and define the shapes and forms that you have in the background. You always want to remember that a painting should have a center of interest. Center of interest is an area where the viewers can stop and rest within your painting, and then if it's too strong, they're going to get stuck there. So you don't want to make it too strong. You want them to go and look at the rest of your painting. And that's it. So it wasn't really a unique situation as far as that particular painting is concerned. And I was pretty happy the way it turned out. Thank you to the Norris Gallery for having this show. This is one of the shows I look forward to every year because of the high quality of the artwork that they have. And also I'd like to thank the people that put it all together, because especially with the pandemic, it had to be a very difficult situation to get it all working together. They did a great job. Also like to thank the judge, Tony Armandaris. Excellent artist, excellent teacher also. And the job that I've judged a lot of shows, and judging is very difficult. There's always more good paintings than there are awards to hand out. So deciding which one is better over another is very difficult to do, especially when you have abstract paintings and realistic and photorealistic and everything in between. So Tony did a great job.
Hi, I'm Susie Shealy. The piece in this exhibition for me is Drive. I am an abstract artist, which is unusual in watercolor. My method is also unusual in that I scrape paint across the dry canvas and then add water to it a lot of times. So I also sometimes use a brush, sometimes use spraying mist. So my process is a little bit different, but it took that for me to be able to love watercolor and to keep doing it. I was struggling to find my lane because I'm not a representational artist. And then when I found this method of watching other artists, a couple of other artists do this, I knew that I had found my lane. And Drive is the first piece that really accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. So I'm excited to do more, and I'm really excited for the award and the honor of being here.
Hi, I'm Wendy Lamb, and my piece, Rainy Day Once Removed, is now in the Norris 2022 show. And it's actually from a reference photo I had taken near Union Station, downtown Chicago, the corner of Canal and Monroe. And as I was going to work one day, I was sitting on the bus. It was just pouring rain, and of course, also on the windows of the bus, raindrops were falling down, and so I had actually taken that photo through the rainy windows, and so hence Rainy Day Once Removed became the inspiration then for creating that piece of artwork. People who do not do watercolor might look at that piece and say, oh, yeah, that's watercolor, we can tell, you know, the colors are kind of blending together a little bit. It does have that watery appearance to it and so on. But people who actually do watercolor will know that there's no way you can achieve it. It takes actually quite a bit of finessing to make it look as though all those colors were just flowing. It's because it's so easy for colors to run over on top of other colors. And so for me, the greatest challenge was, and actually the greatest lesson that I learned was about working with that particular type of paper and gaining some additional mastery over how water, like how saturated I could make the paper before the colors would run totally out of control versus trying to have, you know, a little tighter control over it to be able to achieve all of those water dots. So it was a really interesting piece for me to do. And I just wanted to thank everybody here at Norris. I'll tell you, this is a golden gem for anybody who's into watercolor. I can't speak to the other shows, but it's just wonderful. Everybody goes to so much trouble to make it such a wonderful experience for the artists and for the people who come for this particular exhibit to see all of the artwork, and I just can't thank them enough.